Hi, this is Mike with AskTractorMike.com. I was speaking again today with Chris from 417 Maintenance and Repair, and we're standing in front today of an Oliver 1800 from in the 60s. And Chris is targeted with the task of bringing this tractor out of the fence row and getting it to run again. And Chris, the reason I want to talk about this, a lot of folks are moving to the country, and there may be a tractor on the farm sitting back in a fence row somewhere, and there may be a thought, well, I'll get that running and use it. What are the dangers of doing that? What's the danger you're running into trying to get this tractor running?
There's all sorts of different variations. This particular machine, the motor was stuck. It wouldn't crank over at all.
Now, before we go any further, you got a locked up motor.
Yep.
And if you have an older tractor with an exhaust like this one that goes up and there's no cover on it, what happens?
Anytime it rains or that water just goes down in the muffler and through the exhaust manifold, and that's what happened to this one. It had stuck the exhaust valve, so that was keeping the motor from turning over. And basically what I've had to do, and I got lucky on this one, pulled the valve cover off, was able to spray some penetrating oil down in the valve guide and get it to where it would free up, and now the engine will turn over. Now that the motor's turning over, we can actually see if it'll start and run.
And there was a valve stuck in the open position hitting a piston, and the folks that got the tractor out of the fence row decided to pull it to try to start it, which is kind of a bad idea.
Right. Yeah, you take chances, and that may be what's wrong with this one still. If that piston comes up high enough and the valve's down far enough, they'll actually, hit each other. It'll bend the valve. So at that point, you're taking the head off and having the valves redone, probably installing new valves at that point and springs, and probably looking, $400 or $500 bill. And now that I've got the engine turning over, I want to see if it'll start and run. If it will start and run, we're going to see from there. If it's got a miss or something like that, then more than likely it probably does have a bent valve. But instead of just trying to jump into it and take the head off and finding out that it's okay, I'm going to see if I can get it to run first, and then we'll go from there. So
the first step is to see if the engine turns over. And to do that, how did you get in there to get it to turn?
I pulled the starter out. So where the starter goes into the engine block, you're going to be against the flywheel, and that's what the starter turns to turn the engine over. Once you take the starter out, then you can stick a pry bar or something in there and manually turn the engine over slow, and you're not going to do any damage. Once it gets to the stopping point, where in this case hitting the valve, you're not at a high speed, like you're pulling this thing. You're just turning it over by hand. So if it gets tight, then you know to stop. You're going to do a lot less damage. But I basically turned it back and forth by hand, and got it to where the valve would free up and it would start moving on its own.
So we got it turning over, and then what's the next step?
I'll go ahead and put the valve cover back on and put the spark plugs back in it. I'll put some fresh gas in it. The battery's charged. Normally in this case, you're going to have to buy a battery to put in it. Probably some ignition parts, and once you get it cranking, see if you can get some fuel to it and get it to start. I don't know if you smelt the fuel tank, but it doesn't smell good at all, so we'll have to flush the fuel system out, clean it the best we can, but you can get it to try to run for a minute without the fuel tank on it, and see if at least it'll try to start, and then we'll go from there.
You're probably looking at a carburetor rebuild.
Yeah, possibly a new carburetor, depending on how bad a shape it's in. An old gas tractor, surprisingly old fuel, it may smell really bad, but it doesn't do as much damage as like the newer fuels do. There's so much moisture content, and I think it's to do with the alcohol in fuel now. New carburetors, if this thing was a new carburetor with fuel in it and it's set for 2 years, you're actually probably looking at more damage than if this was a tractor that's set with 20-year-old gas in it. But yeah, probably carb rebuild, ignition parts, $200 or $300 worth of parts plus a battery, just to see if we can get it to run, and then go from there. If you was to have to overhaul the engine, you're probably looking at a couple $1,000.
And I noticed we've got good back tires. The rubber going on an older tractor like this can get really expensive. The front tires are a little bit disappointing.
The rear tires, and old times they put calcium for weight in there. That's notorious for rusting out rims. You know, if you just go put a rear rim on this tractor, you're probably looking at $300 or $400 just for the rim.
The back tires are good though, and those are expensive.
Yeah, you're probably looking the same price for a rear tire. And so you definitely, if you inherit a tractor or pull one out of a fence row or a barn, you better weigh the options of what if you just think it's going to be an easy fix.
Yeah, and we're probably going to stop here with this video and come back to this tractor after you've had a little more time to work your magic on it. I do see a few good things. Like I said, the back rubber's good. There's cow poop on the side of the frame, so Bossy's been up, but Bossy didn't eat the wiring off of the any of the wiring off, and that can be a problem. Or rats and mice can eat wiring, so the electrical system appears to be intact. A lot of rust on the tractor, but there are some good things, and maybe you'll get lucky, and this will make the guy a good tractor.
Yep. Yeah, there's always a possibility. You know, he might be able to put $500 to $1,000 in it and get it running, and be able to use it, you know, maybe just to pull a brush hog or something like that.
Alrighty, I survive on web traffic. I'd be honored if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my Facebook page and share this video with other tractor enthusiasts. And if you have questions or comments, put them down below. We'll try to get back with you. Thanks for watching.